are these people?
On to our first story. So we did it. We bombed Iran in the name of Israel. Let's keep that clear. And honestly, I really do not want to talk about this story at all because I just think this is just another way of just just saying, you know, our country is sold out to Israel and we'll do anything that Israel essentially tells us to do or work in a name for them in order to construct chaos. Now, last week I read an article, I believe, I forgot his name off the top of my head, but I talked about Iran from the Iranian perspective in terms of how they're feeling in terms to the assault that Israel made to them. So now they have, I believe, a right to respond, given what they are as a sovereign nation. And then Trump decided to add fire to the flames over the weekend, and over the last few days, I believe he's now been backtracking a lot of that because he probably now realizes the implications of us asserting ourselves into this conflict. And I'll get into more details in that on the next story that I'll do later on in the show in one specific one. But for now, and I'm sure a lot of you know the basic details of this, but for those of you who don't, we'll head to Truthout. This is written by Sharon Zhang, who reports Trump bombs Iran, then demands Iran to agree to end the war. After the unprovoked attack, Trump demanded that Iran effectively surrender while continuing to threaten the country. So Sharon continues. President Donald Trump announced on Saturday that the U.S. military attack struck 3 sites in Iran in an unprovoked act of aggression. The strikes come after Israel launched its own provoked attack on Iran on June 13th, leading to an all-out war between the two countries. The U.S. strikes mark a major escalation and threaten to further bring instability to the region. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that the U.S. has bombed 3 nuclear facilities in Iran at Truthout, Nantes, and Afghanistan. The Iranian government Atomic Energy Organization confirmed the strikes, saying that they were attacked in a violent act against international laws, including the Non-Proliferation Treaty, by the enemies of Islamic Iran. Regional Iranian officials also confirmed the strikes, as Iranian news reports have reported. Iran has not directly targeted U.S. bases with an attack thus far in its war with Israel, which update they did. Still, in his post announcing the strikes, Trump also demanded that Iran effectively surrender. Now it's the time for peace, he wrote in a follow-up post. He said, Iran must now agree to end this war. The strikes mark the U.S. official direct entry into the war, though the U.S. has provided Israel with support in its bombings on Iran and has also helped provide defense for Israel. The attacks come after politicians and warmongers in the U.S. have called for war with Iran for decades. In a brief address on Saturday night, Trump laid further threats against Iran, saying that the U.S. would continue its strikes if Iran doesn't make peace. He calls Iran the bully of the Middle East, and says that strikes had gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel, the state that, in addition to currently conducting a genocide in Gaza, has been relentlessly attacking and invading countries and territories around it for decades. I mean, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon. This cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the past 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left, Trump said. Numerous lawmakers slammed the strikes, saying that they are unconstitutional as domestic law prohibits the president from launching an unprovoked strike without approval from Congress. Representative at AOC called for Trump to be impeached.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
The president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional law powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations. It is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment, said Ocasio-Cortez. And I mean,
we'll get to that in our next segment. There may be some issues with that.
Right. But if you're going to ask that for Trump, which, you know, under normal circumstances would be valid, but
yeah,
would you need to have that same kind of fire fury for Biden in terms of, because he was willing to send weapons to Israel without authority of Congress.
Yep.
Obama did drone strikes without the authority of Congress. Clinton, I believe, also did drone strikes without the authority of Congress. Like, I mean, every single president in my lifetime, for sure, has done stuff in relation to war illegally without the approval of Congress. So you're saying that, but the chances of Trump being impeached is not going to happen, lady. So
tale as old as time.
Exactly. So
thank you, Angela Lansbury.
I mean, you could say it, but it's not going to happen. So, which I think is why she feels comfortable to say it, because then she's not going to account her party for doing the exact same thing, and have done most recently in terms of what Biden has done. So,
yeah.
So in a way, she can afford to say it, knowing that there won't be any accountability for it, especially given her own party. But anyway, as you said, you're going to get more into that later.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you to that. But in the meantime, let's continue with this article. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the strikes and called for de-escalation and diplomacy. This is a dangerous escalation in a region already on the edge and a direct threat to international peace and security. There's a growing risk that this conflict could rapidly get out of control with catastrophic consequences for civilians, the region, and the world, Guterres said. Oh, that's it. So, as I said, I don't want to... Yeah, so this is from Hotspot, so shout out to Nico and the Hotspot team, because here Nico gives more of an update of what has happened since the weekend. You know, obviously with Trump backtracking somewhat, and now, again, I think he's now realizing the implications of what he's doing, that he's trying to push, well, he says he's trying to push for a ceasefire, but, well, we'll let Nico explain, and then we'll continue.
Yo, I really believe that Trump thinks that we're idiots. Because as he was being interviewed today, in the wake of more attacks between Iran and Israel, he's pretending that he's extremely upset that Israel violated this non-existent ceasefire that only he agreed to. So after Iran attacked the military base in Qatar, Trump, out of nowhere, decided that there was a ceasefire agreement between Israel, Iran, and...
Where have we fucking heard that shit before? Huh? How many times you gotta tell you people about the ceasefire bullshit? How many times?
The 76th rule of acquisition?
The 76th?
Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies.
It is very simple.
The U.S. I mean, the dude literally said that both Iran and Israel called him begging for a ceasefire agreement. Deadass yesterday, Trump was on social media posting like he was off his meds. Like, that's the long and short of it. Now, as you saw in the video, Trump looked a little perturbed that Israel attacked Iran. And, you know, he wasn't too happy that Iran had attacked Israel because of this fake ceasefire agreement that only he agreed to.
They've been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
But if you all recall, he acted as if he was upset and at odds with Netanyahu when he warned him the first time not to attack Iran, or that there would be potential political consequences, only for us to find out that it was all a ruse in order to get Iran to lower their defenses to coordinate an attack against them with Israel. But Trump, you can stop putting up the front, because we've already seen this movie And we know you knew there was never any ceasefire. Hell, as Trump made this post on Truth Social saying that Iran and Israel came to him asking for peace, an Israeli posted, reading this from my bomb shelter in Tel Aviv, standing by for another incoming barrage from Iran. Kamani comes out saying, those who know the Iranian people and their history know the Iranian nation isn't a nation that surrenders. Iranian foreign minister said, as of now, there is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. Top advisor to Iran's parliamentary speaker. Signals of ceasefire lack response to attacks or any of that nature coming from the Trump administration or the regime is merely deception. And from the Israel camp, have y'all heard one video, one tweet, one sentence, one utterance of the word ceasefire from the mouth of Bibi Netanyahu? No, you have not. So how Trump sycophants can pretend that there was some imaginary ceasefire and that Trump was just caught off guard and is totally surprised and is genuinely angry at Netanyahu is beyond me. So let me be very clear. Trump can pretend to be as angry at Netanyahu and Israel as he wants to, but you can't play the same card twice and expect us to fall for it, bro. Like you just sent 300 Hellfire missiles to Israel a few days ago. What did you think they were going to do with those missiles? Use them as decoration? Sorry, Iran's not falling for it again. If you want a ceasefire and you want peace and an end to this conflict, you need to bring Netanyahu and Israel to heel. And that means actually holding them accountable, which I doubt you'll do because you're probably orchestrating this whole thing in order to once again catch Iran off guard. But it ain't happening, bro.
Well, what? Shout out Nico.
Yeah, shout out to him and his shout
Yo, I really
him and the hotspot team. So kind of going into that, which I think is a good segue.
Yeah.
Craig Murray reported on this assault as well. Gives a more in-depth take on this, where he titles his article, "You Can't Bomb Iran into Zionism." The U.S. not only has zero interest in peace, neither does Israel, it is engaging in morally abhorrent levels of dishonesty and deception, attacking under a false flag of truce. So Craig continues, come on, thank you. Israel and the USA have each attacked Iran in the middle of negotiations. So remember, Trump a couple of weekends ago was supposed to go to Iran to discuss a deal. And then Israel bombed the place before that. So Israel is the aggressor in this. So I have to kind of say that because I think people forget that fact. Iran must not fall for it for a third time. Negotiation is dead. Israel attacked Iran during negotiations between Iran and the US, with the next scheduled meeting just 3 days away. Trump then gave Iran a 2-week ultimatum to agree to a peace deal. Iran held one foreign minister level meeting with the UK, Germany, and France and scheduled a second meeting. Trump then attacked Iran with 11 days of the ultimatum still to run. Claiming the Zionist West not only has zero interest in peace, it is engaging in morally abhorrent levels of dishonesty and deception, attacking under a false flag of truce. The idea that Iran should now return to negotiation, quote unquote, with such appalling, deceitful interlocutors is riskable. It is also claimed that the USA has no intention of stopping the attacks. Trump's statement said that further attacks will follow unless Iran stops fighting. Claiming the objectives of the USA are not in truth merely the destruction of Iran's nuclear program, but total victory for Israel in the war it has started with Iran. Trump's demand of unconditional surrender still stands, and the aim remains, as I stated, regime change to install the Shah with a Sunni prime minister. Zionist regimes have been installed in Lebanon and Syria in the last 6 months. They already existed in the Gulf states and Jordan. The aim is to install a Zionist regime in Tehran is overreached by Netanyahu and Trump. You cannot bomb the Iranian people into Zionism. The extent of bombing and the extent of death that would be required for regime change in Iran is astonishing. Contrary to neoliberal expectation, but obviously to anyone with a brain, The attacks on Iran have rallied support for his government. I find nothing more nauseating than the Western feminists who are campaigning for war against Iran to bring about regime change. Not only would regime change involve the deaths of hundreds of thousands of women in war, there is no doubt whatsoever that Western destruction of Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and Iraq made the lives of those women in those countries much worse, both in terms of infrastructure and conditions of life, and also in terms of women's position in society.
Which also, most of that is just misunderstanding of the culture altogether. Like,
right.
You know.
Right.
So, anyway.
Like, it's the idea, and this is why I saw a lot of, oh, women are fully clothed, like, are fully covered, they have no rights.
Yeah, like, do you not see the wedding parties in Iraq? Like, do you not see, like, the same things we see online? Like, it's, you know, there's Iranian supermodels.
I would argue what the media wants you to see.
Right.
Like, I would argue, like, yes, you can see, I think, the fullness of Iran, like, if you do your own research, but I think also there's just a lot of Islamophobia anyway. So the idea of any Islamic country, especially at post 9/11, people have a view of Iran just anywhere in the Middle East now.
What's
it's just the idea that they're backwards, that they're so conservative, which to a point is true. But having been in Morocco, having been in Jordan, there's a spectrum. Like, there are women covered in Iran, but there are also women that are not. And I imagine in Tehran, which is more cosmopolitan, you will see a mix of women in whatever dress. So, which I think, especially in the global South, generally, you will see some of that.
Right.
But unless people are not willing to either go there, which, funny enough, I know that Piers Morgan was offered the opportunity to go to Iran and said no, but he is willing to go to Israel, though. But, you know, unless you go there yourself, or you do your own research and find that, no, like, a lot of the media gives you an impression of the Middle East that is backward. It's the same shit that they do with Africa. It's like, oh, Africans live in huts, they're poor, their bellies are extended. You know, we've seen that, you know, but obviously that's not the whole of it. So, but yeah, I think because we're so lazy to do our own research, that it is expected that for most people, they're going to think a certain way of Muslims in general, but then especially like the Middle East, in terms of, oh, they're backwards, we're better than them, having this moral superiority over them in terms of human rights, quote unquote, when we're not much better here. So, but I think that's the point, is to kind of ignore the issues that we have in this country and kind of shame other countries for what seemingly is worse, when we have no right to kind of say, you know, like, we're better than you type thing. But anyway, the attempt to gaslight the public with abject lies about Iran's nuclear weapon capability is so blatant a repeat of Iraqi WMD scam that I am astonished they dare to try it. The attacks on Iran are completely illegal, and I am quite sure will in fact lead to Iran changing its mind and deciding to possess a nuclear weapon, which will be achieved within 5 years. You can have watched or listened to hundreds of hours of BBC broadcasting on the current war in Iran and never heard once that Israel possesses nuclear weapons, because they do. The levels of propaganda are truly extreme. The attacks on Iran are illegal. There's no doubt of that. Iran faces a monumental struggle, but has no choice but to fight. In the meantime, not a single day has passed when Israel has not shot and killed Palestinians in Gaza in the queues for food. The genocide goes on, and the US and Israel have succeeded in turning the world's attention and bringing their Western satraps back into line just when the Gaza genocide was alarming politicians internationally by its blatancy. I see much futile discussion as to whether Israel is controlling the US or the US controlling Israel. Plainly, the answer is both. There is a deep symbiotic relationship of the political classes in both places. The key point is that the Israel settler colony carries an insupportable weight in the policy decisions of Western politicians. And we'll get to more about that somewhat later on in the show. Like all colonism, as outlined by Vladimir Lenin and J.E. Dobson, this is because colonialism benefits the personal interests of the wealthy and military classes, but is a burden on working people. I find Hobson offers an invaluable perspective to look at the Israel settler colony. Long-term readers will know that I have stated that J.A. Hobson's Imperialism, a Study, had more effect on my understanding of the world than any other book. I strongly recommend it. There is a new edition with a foreword by Jeremy Corbyn. Can you zoom out, please? Oh, that's it. So that's J.A. Hobson there. So, I mean, I'm going to end the segment here because, oh, wait, no, I don't. There's one more clip that I'm going to play. But, I mean, you know, it's just the idea that the media, I think people are stupid to try and Iraq war us into justification that we need to be in war. We don't. And, you know, and I don't think it's necessarily going to work. Well, I would argue it didn't work under Bush, really, but it's definitely not going to work under Trump. But I do want to make clear, if this were happening under Kamala or Biden, we would have been in this shit a lot sooner. And as I told you the other day, the Democrats have better PR to justify it, I believe. It's only because of Trump and how sloppy he is that it's easy to attack him. But the Democrats, if it were the Democrats, they'll be a little more, I would say they'll be a little more sly with it. Like, you know, it would be a lot easier for them to make the adjustment. I mean, we kind of saw this in liberal media anyway. Like, Van Jones was saying, oh, we have to go, like some stupid shit, like, oh, we have to go to a war with Iran because Iran is violating all these human rights. Like, Iran is not a normal country, as if we are, you know, but yeah, I wanted to play this. This was actually, I saw this, a friend posted this on IG stories. I forgot the name of this politician, but this is based in the UK. But he was, I believe this was from 2007, I believe. But he was talking about, you know, one of the few politicians that I know of that actually spoke out against war. So, Miami accent. And let's play this to end the segment.
War is an easy thing to talk about. There are not many people of the generation that remember it. The right honourable gentleman served with distinction in the last war. I never killed anyone, but I wore uniform. But I was in London in the Blitz in 1940, living in the Millbank Tower where I was born. Some different ideas have come in since. And every night I went down to the shelter in Thames House. Every morning I saw Dockland burning. 500 people were killed in Westminster one night by a landmine. It was terrifying. Aren't Arabs terrified? Aren't Iraqis terrified? Don't Arab and Iraqi women weep when their children die? Doesn't bombing strengthen their determination? What fools we are to live in a generation for which war is a computer game for our children and just an interesting little Channel 4 news item. Every member of Parliament tonight who votes for the government motion will be consciously and deliberately accepting the responsibility for the deaths of innocent people if the war begins, as I fear it will. Now, that's for their decision to take. But this is a quite unique debate in my parliamentary experience where we're asked to share responsibility for a decision we won't really be taking with consequences for people who have no part to play in the brutality of the regime which we are dealing with. And I finish with this. On October the 24th, 1945, and the former Prime Minister from Bexley Old Sidcup will remember it, the United Nations Charter was passed. And the words of that charter are etched into my mind and move me even as I think of them. We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save future generations, succeeding generations, from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has caused untold suffering to mankind. That was the pledge of that generation to this generation, and it would be the greatest betrayal of all if we voted to abandon the Charter and take unilateral action and pretend we were doing it in the name of the international community. And I shall vote against the motion for the reasons that I've given the House.
I mean, just the idea of it's easy for politicians to declare war when they're the ones not fighting it. So, and even online or at least on social media, I'm hearing, military families who are kind of worried right now because they're like, like right now their tours might be extended for the potential of, going into the Middle East, so a lot of families having to change or kind of reschedule things in light of that possibly. So it sucks because again, politicians take war lightly.
Yeah.
And it's still the idea of like thousands of people are going to be affected, and not just limited to us. Like the world will be affected by the brutality that war brings. And so it's just kind of callous for both parties. And, we saw a lot of MAGA basically being like, oh, we didn't vote for this. We had no, yes, you did. But then conversely, and this is kind of the thing that I hated seeing, which I did want to bring up to end the segment. Like I saw a lot of, liberals who were like, oh, MAGA, you voted for this, like own it and all that kind of stuff. This was going to happen under Biden too. And you voted for him in terms of genocide, or you were able to overlook it. And I actually tweeted this out. It's like, it's a lot easier to be well, I'm going to paraphrase what I said, but it's a lot easier for regardless of what team you're on, to vote for the thing that is most uncomfortable for you, because you can justify it when it's your team. So it's easy to call out the Republicans now if you're a Democrat, but you won't necessarily give the Democrats that critique when they do it. So it's just more of the sportsification of politics that we talk about a lot, that is just so blatant. So whether you are involved in the duopoly, like you're voting for war because the military-industrial complex has a hold on these politicians, and regardless of what party you're with, and how that includes the Greens as well, like they stand by war. So whether or not, so I just hated that attitude of what I saw online of like people being like, hey, you guys need to own what you did because this is your fault. Like you brought us into this. And you forget that not even like 6-7 months ago, you were willing to vote for a decrepit old man who was complicit in genocide. So how's that any better? So, like I said, there's more to the story. That is probably why Trump is backtracking now, which we'll get into later. But any last thoughts before we end the segment?
No, I mean, I think it's just the whole ceasefire thing always gets me. I mean, we've talked about it endlessly, that there is no such thing. What's the Rafat Al-Arir quote? Palestinians cease and Israel fires. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, may he rest in power, you know? But like, it's the same playbook, like over and over again, and somehow people still are lost, you know? Baffles me. Anyway, yeah, that's what I have to say. Well,
since I'm sure war is not a popular topic on YouTube anyway, but I think with the detail that we gave is one of the reasons why we are demonetized. So if you want to support us, and I think I saw Kieran Pine, I think you actually asked, comrades, what's the best place for regular INN donations? Which platform benefits the channel more? We're going to tell you. So thank you for your question. Ko-fi actually is probably the best way because they take the least amount, but you do have options, so we'll get into that. So if you want to give via a Ko-fi account, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can go to the link at your bottom of your screen, or if you in the YouTube chat, you can type in !donate, all one word, the Ko-fi link will pop up, and you can give as much or as little as you want. So anything as small as $1 will help. And as we say every week, we're thankful for your giving, but obviously we know that times are rough in these streets. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of your community before you give to us. But if you do happen to have some extra money on hand, we'd be more than happy to accept your donations, no matter how big or small. Any donations that you give us basically helps us to pay for the programming and the tools that we need in order to create this show and other shows on the network. So you're helping us subset the cost of some, if not all of that. So we do appreciate you guys for helping us out in that regard, as well as any extra money that we'll get this year. We're hoping to give to other colleagues in the network to update their tech so that they're able to continue to make content out of their not so great tech equipment right now. So we also have CashApp, PayPal, and Substack if you want to give that those ways as well. Those links are in the description below, and there always will be. That being said, if money you're tight, but you still want to support us, the free way is liking, subbing, and sharing our content. And make sure you leave a comment if you're in the chat or if you're watching this as a clip. And let us know what your thoughts are regarding our aggression on Iran. Do you think it's justified? Well, a lot of you say no. How do you think Trump is dealing with this? But let us know what you think. And help us get to free K. I think we're very close. I think we're about 20 people away from hitting that. No, we're 25K. So we're under 500, about 500 away from free K right now. So, but we appreciate you guys supporting us, and thanks for watching.